My sister's laugh bounced off the good china like a dropped spoon. It was that bright, ringing laugh she uses when she's about to say something she thinks is harmless but lands like a dart. "Oh, come on," Jenna said, waving her fork toward me as if I were the punchline carved into the turkey. "Another year without a +1 and without a bun in the oven? You're going to age out of the pumpkin patch at this rate." The cranberry sauce did a slow, nervous wobble. Uncle Ray coughed into his napkin. The Cowboys game murmured from the living room like it wished it could switch channels. I felt the eyes of the table swing to me, some with pity, a few with curiosity, and at least one, my cousin April, with the greedy spark people get when the conversation turns messy. "I brought rolls," I said, because in that moment it was the only non-flammable sentence I could think of. I set them down beside the sweet potatoes like a peace offering. Jenna smiled, big and hostess bright, the way she'd been smiling all day since arriving in a trench coat that said sophisticated mom energy and a scarf her kids were forbidden to touch. "We know you brought rolls," she said. "We're just wondering when you're going to bring something with your last name attached to it." She pointed delicately at her two children, Maya, 7, and Theo, 4, who were currently sorting green beans by length like tiny inspectors. "You can even start with 1. You don't have to go full minivan." "Jenna," Mom said softly. Mom's voice doesn't boom. It drifts, like steam from the gravy boat. But today her words fogged in the air and cooled fast. She was wearing Dad's old watch, the one that ticks loud when the room falls quiet. After he passed, she started wearing it every day, as if its steady pulse could keep the house's heart going. That watch had summoned me back for late-night medication refills and roof leaks and 1,000 little chores nobody offers to do until they become a daily rhythm. "It's fine," I told Mom, and I meant it the way people mean it when it is not fine. "I'm happy to be the fun aunt." I ruffled Theo's hair. He giggled and tried to put a black olive on every finger. Jenna leaned in like she had a secret. "You know what Dad used to say?" she said, and I knew exactly where she was going because she always went there when she needed a podium. "Family is your legacy. He would have loved to see you settle down. He was worried about you drifting." The words felt like someone had unscrewed the top of a snow globe and poured the glitter into my lungs. Dad had said lots of things. He said them from a recliner when the treatments made him tired, and at the kitchen table when the bills started rubbing together like dry leaves, and once, late at night, in the driveway with his hand on my shoulder, that I was the one who never left him alone in a storm. "Daddy also said not to talk with your mouth full," I said, because humor is cheaper than oxygen. And here you are breaking 2 rules at once. A few laughs flickered around the table like candles fighting a draft. April smiled into her water glass. Uncle Ray reached for the gravy with the caution of a man who knew better than to cross unfamiliar terrain. Jenna took a sip of wine, unfazed. "I'm just saying. You're 31. The apps aren't getting any kinder. If you need tips, I could." "Jenna." Mom again. This time the steam had cooled into a flat surface you could see yourself in. She set her fork down and folded her napkin with the neat, deliberate motions of a nurse preparing a bandage. It's what she used to do at St. Luke's before the years wore her feet out, and then Dad got sick, and all her gentleness came home to roost. I watched her hands. I always do. They were smaller than Jenna's, paler, lined with little highways that told the story of 1,000 meals cooked and 1,000 pills sorted. They trembled sometimes now, not from fear, but because time is a weight even careful hands can't keep holding forever. She had insisted on doing Thanksgiving, even though I offered to host. "One more year in this dining room," she said. "Tradition doesn't pack itself." I'd spent Wednesday evening here anyway, basting turkeys and lifting platters, relabeling spice jars with my blocky handwriting, because hers had grown faint. While Jenna posted stories of maple brine birds and pie crust lattices, I was scraping the bottom of the roasting pan, saving the drippings because Mom likes her gravy as thick as a good novel. It felt like the sort of invisible labor that never makes a highlight reel. I wasn't mad about it. I just wanted it to be seen. Maya tugged my sleeve. "Auntie, can I have more marshmallows on my yams?" "Sure, kiddo." I added a few, the way I always do, then took the spoon back so she wouldn't eat them by the fistful. Across the table, Jenna watched like a principal grading effort. "You'd make a great mom," she said, softening her voice as if that changed the edge. "You're wasting the good years. You know." She tapped her temple. "Clock." I felt the heat rise up my neck and settle behind my eyes. I wasn't childless by accident. I wasn't childless because I forgot to download the right app or because I couldn't figure out how to flirt with a man in the cereal aisle. I was childless because I'd spent 18 months sleeping on a pull-out couch in Mom's den so I could hear if Dad called out at night. Because I traded happy hours for hospice, date nights for double shifts, brunch for banking passwords. Because when an ambulance lights your street enough times, you measure time in breathing. But you can't say that without sounding like you're holding your care up like a trophy. You can't say it without making the table grow thorns. So I smiled with all my teeth and said, "Some clocks are set to different time zones." Jenna tilted her head, pity playing on her face like a screensaver. "I just don't want you to wake up one day and realize you missed it." "Missed what?" I asked. "The joy or the exhaustion?" She shrugged. "Both. That's the deal." Theo held up his olive fingers. "Monster hands," he yelled, and the table laughed again, because children have a way of rescuing adults from the edge of conversations we don't know how to finish. Mom dabbed at the corner of her mouth. The watch ticked, a tiny metronome. Her eyes moved from Jenna to me, and then down the table, taking us all in like a painter stepping back from a canvas. She reached for her water, hands steady now, as if she'd made up her mind about something and the decision settled her. "Before dessert," she said, and her voice had that Sunday church calm. "I want to say something." Forks hovered midair. Even the football seemed to turn down the volume. "It can wait, Mom," Jenna said brightly. "We're having a moment." "No," Mom said, gentle but unyielding. "It shouldn't wait." She touched the watch face with her thumb, just once, the way someone might touch a photo before putting it in a frame. "I've been organizing, and there's something I need you all to hear from me while we're together." April's eyebrows shot up. Uncle Ray set the gravy down as if it were suddenly heavier. Jenna flashed me a look that said, "See what you started?" I folded my napkin and placed it on the edge of my plate, my heart doing a slow drum roll in my chest. In the kitchen, the timer for the pies chimed, bright and cheerful, the sound of a promise about to finish baking. Mom didn't move. She tapped the side of her glass with her fork, once, twice, and the room tightened in around the sound until you could feel the echo in your ribs. "About the estate," she said. "I've made my decision." The words sat in the middle of the table like a dropped knife. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Jenna let out a sharp laugh, too high-pitched to sound natural. "Mom, can this wait? We're literally eating stuffing right now." She tried to wave it off, like Mom had just announced she'd forgotten to buy whipped cream. But Mom didn't smile. She lifted her chin and said, "No, it can't wait. I've already spoken with my attorney. It's finalized, and you all deserve to know where things stand." My chest tightened. I looked at her hands, folded neatly by her plate. They weren't shaking anymore. She'd made her peace with this long before tonight. "What are you even talking about?" Jenna's voice cracked. Her kids were watching, wide-eyed, sensing the electricity, but not the meaning. "The house," Mom said simply. "The savings, the land, everything your father and I built together. It's spoken for." Uncle Ray muttered a low, "Lord have mercy," and busied himself with potatoes. Jenna's eyes flicked toward me, then back at Mom. "So what? You're splitting it 50-50 between us. That's fine. I assumed that's what you'd do." Mom inhaled slowly, like she was about to plunge into cold water. "No, it's not 50-50. It's not a split at all." She paused, then turned her gaze fully on me. "It's going to your sister." My fork slipped against my plate with a metallic scrape. "Mom." The silence after her words was thick, almost alive. April's mouth fell open. Even Theo stopped with his olive fingers midair. Jenna blinked rapidly, as if the words hadn't quite registered. Then her laugh came back, brittle this time. "That's what? Some kind of joke?" "No joke," Mom said, her voice steady. "It's hers. The deed, the accounts, the future. All of it." I wanted to shrink into my chair. My ears were burning. This wasn't how I wanted it. Not like this. Not with every eye drilling into me like I'd stolen something I hadn't even asked for. "Why?" Jenna's face flushed crimson, her voice pitching upward. "Why would you do that? I'm the one with kids. I'm the one carrying on the family name. What does she need with all that? She doesn't even have a husband." "Enough," Mom said. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the room. "This is not about husbands or children. This is about who was here when it mattered." The words landed like thunder. I stared at my plate, heart thudding so hard I felt it in my throat. I didn't want this moment. I didn't want Mom to dredge up the nights I'd carried Dad down the hallway, or the mornings I'd changed his sheets before going to work, or the endless appointments I'd driven them to while Jenna texted updates about PTO meetings and pumpkin patch photos. But Mom kept going, her voice calm and unshakable. When your father was dying, she was the one here every day. When the roof leaked, she was the one who patched it. When I couldn't lift the laundry basket, she carried it. She never asked for a penny, never complained, never treated it like a chore. She has earned this, not just through blood, but through sacrifice. I heard Jenna suck in a breath like she'd been slapped. So what? I'm being punished for having a life? For having children? You're not being punished, Mom said. You will always be my daughter. But this house, this estate, it needs to go to someone who has already proven she'll care for it. For me. For what your father and I worked for. That someone is her. I wanted to say something, to soften it, to stop the way Jenna's face was crumpling into a mask of disbelief and rage. But my mouth stayed closed. Because deep down, I knew Mom was only saying out loud what had been true for years. Jenna pushed back her chair, the legs screeching against the hardwood. This is insane. Absolutely insane. She turned toward me, her eyes sharp enough to cut. Did you know about this? I shook my head quickly. No, I swear I didn't. My voice felt too small for the weight of the moment. Her laugh was jagged now, breaking apart. Of course you didn't. You wouldn't have the guts to scheme like this. But you'd take it, wouldn't you? You'll sit there and play innocent while everything that should be mine gets handed to you on a silver platter. My stomach turned. I wanted to stand, to leave the room, to step out into the cold November air and breathe something that wasn't so heavy. Mom, still calm, reached for her water. It isn't about silver platters. It's about who kept the table standing. Jenna's chair tipped slightly as she shoved it back. You'll regret this, she said, her voice trembling with fury. Both of you. The room was frozen, every relative caught between shame and shock, between sympathy for her and quiet recognition of the truth. And all I could think, staring at my untouched plate, was that Thanksgiving had just become a feast none of us would forget. Jenna didn't come back to the table. I heard her boots on the hardwood, quick and uneven, then the slam of the front door so hard the silverware rattled. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The kids sat stunned, April's eyes darting between me and Mom like she was afraid of breathing wrong. Uncle Ray muttered something about coffee and excused himself to the kitchen. The silence pressed down until Mom finally picked up her fork again. Eat while it's warm, she said softly, as if nothing had happened. I couldn't move. My appetite was gone, replaced with a weight in my chest that felt heavier than the turkey itself. Mom, you didn't have to do that here. Not tonight. Her gaze met mine, steady and unashamed. Yes, I did. Tonight was the right night. Families need to hear the truth together. I swallowed hard. But you didn't need to put me in the middle like that. You've been in the middle for years, she said simply. Tonight, I just made it official. Across the table, April gave me a small, sympathetic smile. For what it's worth, she said quietly, everybody knows you've been the one keeping this place together. Aunt Jenna just doesn't like hearing it. The words warmed me and stung all at once. I wanted to believe them, but part of me still felt like an imposter at my own table. Maya tugged on my sleeve. Auntie, she whispered, does this mean we can't come here anymore? That broke something in me. I bent down, smoothing her hair. Of course you can, sweetheart. This house will always be family. Always. Theo, still with his olive fingers, chimed in proudly. Monster house. He waved his hands around and giggled, and the tension cracked just enough for a few chuckles to slip out. Dessert was quieter than usual. The pies were perfect, golden crusts flaking under Mom's careful knife, but nobody asked for seconds. The football game murmured from the living room like a reminder that the world outside kept turning. When the dishes were cleared and the kids bundled into coats, I walked Jenna's family to their car. She didn't look at me, just buckled the kids in with jerky, hurried movements. Before she closed the door, she turned and hissed, You think you've won something tonight, but you haven't. You'll see. Then she drove off without another word. I stood in the cold driveway, the taillights glowing red against the frost, my breath rising in white clouds. It didn't feel like victory. It didn't even feel like inheritance. It felt like a fracture running through the center of our family, one that no lawyer's document could ever mend. When I came back inside, Mom was sitting at the table with Dad's old watch ticking on her wrist. She looked tired, but there was peace in her eyes. "I'm sorry," I said, sitting beside her. She shook her head. "Don't be. You gave your father and me years of your life. This is just my way of giving something back." I wanted to argue, to tell her I never wanted repayment, that love isn't a ledger. But the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I just took her hand, small and lined and steady in mine. The house was quiet except for the hum of the heater and that steady ticking watch. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the bare branches against the windows. For the first time all evening, I let myself breathe. Because beneath the weight of Jenna's fury and the shock of Mom's announcement, there was a truth I couldn't ignore. I hadn't asked for the estate, but I had already inherited the responsibility years ago. All Mom had done was write it down, and that, I realized, was her way of making sure I finally believed it.